In the museum today, what we're going to look at is the Flakpanzer Gepard. This is a German production vehicle, so they started off in development in the late 60s. In all, for Germany, they made about 420 hulls and about 432 turrets. This particular hull is right at the sort of towards the end of their production with the serial number range, so this one comes out at about 413. But coupled with that, we have an early turret, so this is number 62. So within that first batch of 214 vehicles in the just the Gepard 1 series, this one comes in at the Gepard 1 A1 series. Now, interestingly, they say that this vehicle is based on a modified Leopard hull. On a standard Leopard, we're looking at 70 millimeters of armour on the glacis plate. This one has 30. This one gives us a line of sight of about 58.2 millimeters. On the sides, we're looking at about 25 millimeters of armour. As we come up for the roof, top of the hull, we're looking at about 30 millimeters of armour. Come up to the turret. At the front, we're looking at about 25 millimeters of armour and then 20 around the sides. So it is lightly protected, so it can still take up to about your 14.5 millimeters, small arms and fragmentation. Another modification to the hull is where we would normally see the 39 round wine rack, as we would call it. Now we've replaced that whole area with an auxiliary engine. So this is the 3.8 litre diesel engine, a Daimler-Benz engine, but it is a multi-fuel engine. So this auxiliary engine will provide 5 different power sources to the turret itself. So we're talking about traverse, elevation, the radars and all that sort of stuff as well. Depending on the usage of the vehicle, what they're running, they can use anywhere between 10 to 20 litres per hour. We notice we have this cover here. This is the exhaust system for that engine, and it just comes out the back. Again, another modification for this vehicle. With all Leopards, we generally have a couple of different measurements for the spacings of the running gear. So starting from the front 2 road wheels, we generally have about a 60 millimetre gap, 6 centimetres. As we move along, we notice now we've got this very large gap here. Because the hull is lengthened, they've increased this gap by about a further 8 or so centimetres. So this one comes out to about 13 centimetres now. But as we look at the last couple, this gap here now goes to about 5 centimetres. So we have 6, 13 and 5 to lengthen the hull. As per a standard Leopard, inside the turret on the back firewall, we have 2 banks of 4 batteries that sit either side. With this turret, because we have ammunition stowage, we can't have the batteries anywhere. So now we have 6 batteries that sit in under covers in the back of the vehicle here. So hence why the vehicle is lengthened, and it's lengthened as opposed to a normal Leopard hull, which comes in at about 7.09 metres. This is lengthened by an extra 23 centimetres. So what we have here in conjunction with the vehicle for its tracking system is the acquisition radar. So this radar, when it comes up, when the turret is active, starts spinning automatically, and it spins at about 60 revolutions a minute, so it's quite fast. This will pick up an aircraft at about 15 to 16 kilometre mark. Now they did do some upgrades along the way, so depending on which band that they run in, there's a difference between the German radar and the Dutch radar, so the PRTL variant of the Gepard. So they have 2 different radar systems and run different bands. This is the tracking radar, and it's in its stowed position at the moment, so when it becomes active, it'll actually spin around. So this part here will face the front. Now this can traverse 180 degrees, left and right. This will pick up the aircraft at about 15 kilometres, and it will generally lock on anywhere, depending on the ammunition type that we're firing, from about 3.5 kilometres out to about 5.5 kilometres is where you sort of want to be engaging aircraft from, but it will pick up and track aircraft a lot closer to the vehicle as well. I've read that it can track anything right up to within 100 metres of the vehicle. So this one here, depending on where it's looking, it still has sort of a window left and right of about 200 mils that it can still track aircraft. So the armaments on this, the twin 35mm Oerlikon KDA guns. So this is the business end of the vehicle. So with these guns, they have a rate of fire of 550 rounds per minute. So firing in tandem, we can chuck out 1,100 rounds per minute. We'll have a high explosive incendiary round. We also have armour piercing high explosive incendiary as well. So with the ammunition load on here, generally we have a AP HEI round to about 3 HEI rounds loaded within the system. Each gun, as I said, has 320 rounds. We also have on either side 40 rounds of APDS. So this is if we come in contact with an armoured vehicle, the crew can quickly change out the high explosive incendiary rounds for an armour piercing discarding sabot round. As we see the guns at the moment, they're sort of perfectly horizontal, but we have a -5 degree in depression, and these guns will go all the way up to 85 degrees. So with the high explosive incendiary, we're looking at about 1,100 metres per second. When we're talking about armour piercing high explosive incendiary, we're talking about 1,400 metres per second. And that includes the frangible armour piercing discarding sabot, which come out on the A2 variant of this vehicle. Now with the frangible APDS, what this does is essentially when it hits the target, it breaks up, and that tungsten penetrated in it that's encased in the round is about 19 millimetres in diameter. These, they can pre-select how many rounds they want to fire, so they can do 10 round bursts, 20 round bursts, 40 round bursts, and you only need to get a couple of rounds on target to actually bring the aircraft down. So this is where we look at the feed of the ammunition. The rounds are loaded externally, so they would have loading trays that would come out through the side here. They would grab their rounds, which will come already boxed, already linked together, but then they need to join the links as well. The rounds are placed on here, and then they are slotted in via a chute that goes down into the turret. Within the turret on both left side and right side ammunition cases. So 320 rounds will fit in each side with a mixture of both HEI and AP HEI. On this side here, we've got a little diagram. These are those APDS rounds against armoured vehicles. So they would have 20 in each side. If we need to use the 40 rounds of armour piercing discarding sabot, we have a little diagram here. So we've got one for aircraft and we have one for tanks. So we can actually switch between the guns.
So you've got to come out of the vehicle to do this?
Essentially, yes.
Or hang out of the turret?
Hang out of the turret, lift that cover, quickly switch it over, but then you'd also have to load those rounds.
Oh,
so
loaded.
that is the killer. You're not operating alone. So you've got other vehicles around you, so that is your protection. But yeah, it's probably not a thing that I'd probably want to be doing, getting out and changing ammunition. Apart from using the radars to track an aircraft and lock onto the aircraft, what they can do as well, both the commander and the gunner can look through those sights and engage targets. Well, this is the hatch that closes down when they're in a combat environment. And obviously we've got handles which lock, and we've also got a bit of padding as well, so they don't bump their heads going across rough terrain. So when we got this vehicle into the museum and we put it up obviously on our socials, we had some outside interest, especially with previous operators who use this vehicle. One of the guys that we got in contact with in Belgium, he actually gave us the correct serial number for this vehicle, the correct markings for this vehicle as well. The Bundeswehr run about 12 regiments of Gepard, so we know that this was in the 11th Regiment. Just by having some of those viewers who operated these vehicles, the information that we can get to make these vehicles look pretty authentic is quite useful. So this vehicle, as we would have seen, has been on Armour Fest last year. It's available this year, so you can go for a ride on this vehicle. So book your tickets online for Armour Fest 2023.